Hi, it's Corbett Harrison, and the motto of my classroom is "We write to prove that we think." I have no better way to check my students' true understanding than by having them do small pieces of writing for me, sometimes larger pieces of writing for me. And what I like about writing is that there are lots of resources out there that will help you surprise your students with the kind of writing you ask them to do. The favorite book that I've had for many years for surprising students is 51 Wacky Research Reports, and this particular presentation is on one of those research reports, the one that I've probably used the most in my career. Barry calls it in the book wacky recipe poems. I'd call them unusual recipes. Today I'm going to be sharing my adaptation of this idea, and I give full credit of it to the great Barry Lane. So in classrooms we are expected to do scholarly papers, and problem with scholarly papers is there are lots of issues that come up with plagiarism. I like to, you have to threaten the students and say, I do use Turnitin.com, which I do, and so I have the ability to catch you, I say, but in truth, I'm not sure I have 100% ability to catch my students who do the old copy and paste. It's becoming an art form among students, and I like how Barry's book helps me with that. I say to my students, I will catch you, but truthfully, that feels kind of like an empty threat these days, and so I have to outthink my students, and Barry kind of did the work for us. His book 51 Wacky Research Reports gives students ways to write about things that there is no way they could plagiarize them, and that's what I've always honored about this particular book. Let's break down the title, Wacky Research. Wacky, Barry has a great sense of humor, and he tried to capture different ways that students could use their sense of humor when they are writing. Barry's philosophy is if you're thinking with your sense of humor, you're automatically thinking with a deeper part of your brain. If you can make fun of something intelligently, then you are thinking about it deeply. I like to say to my students, I want smart jokes, not fart jokes, but wacky is what Barry brings to it. Barry actually is a very funny guy. Here's a picture of Barry. If you look at Barry's own writing that he's posted on his website that he wrote himself, I think from a young age Barry always wanted to work at Mad Magazine, and he'd be a perfect stand-in for Alfred E. Neuman. As you might see from his picture, Barry would not be upset that I said that. Barry's got a great sense of humor. The other word in the title that I like to focus on is we. Many of these ideas, when you challenge a student to write something unusual or wacky, students aren't used to doing that, and so Barry's philosophy is at least the first few times they write as a group. We've been talking about interpersonal learners in my classroom I'm currently teaching, and how they are the most at risk in school because they like to chit-chat while they are learning, for them to do a group writing task is a great way to bring your interpersonal learners in. And then finally, the word search. We talk about research, and we talk about how we're supposed to teach students to put research into their own words. This book and its tasks really help students understand what putting research into your own words really means. And so just quickly, my history with Barry Lane. In the 2000s, I was working for the professional development agency of our state, designing trainings on writing. We created a class through a grant to buy hundreds of copies of Wacky Research, and teachers who took our class got free copies of those books. We made a website to go along with that particular class, full of its resources, and Barry was kind enough, sorry, I'm skipping ahead there, Barry actually came and presented at our class a few times, and in conversations with Barry, he was kind enough to let us take some of the ideas from the book, 4 of them, and post them online. You can find the page where we have 4 examples from this book posted online if you go to Google and you type in Writing Fix and Wacky Research. We thank Barry Lane, and still do, for giving us permission to share. These were the ones that we shared. Rare Photographs is a nice alternative to exit tickets is how I use it. If you're interested in that concept, you can go look at the webpage. Use those Google words. Wacky Wanted posters is another one that's very popular. I see it going on in a lot of social studies, science, and math classrooms. Wacky Report Cards is the one that I'll be doing in a video after this one. And then Wacky Recipe Poems is the one I'm going to do it, you can actually go to the web page, Writing Fix Wacky Research page, and you can download and print free copies of these particular examples. So you can try it out and see if the book is a book that you'd be interested in having. Let's talk about wacky recipe poems. First of all, the recipe poem, I've taught this many times and adapted it many times over the year. That's the purpose of this presentation, is to share my adaptations. Students need a word bank in order to do this particular one. So days before we even look at what a wacky recipe is, we play Mr. Harrison's version of Boggle in class, and it works like this. You get 90 seconds. I give you a category and a blank piece of notebook paper. Over on the left-hand side, you write as many words as you can that fit that category. Spelling does not count on that list. I'm going to suggest you pause and take advantage of seeing what this actually feels like. The topic for the day, I'll announce it, and please pause and for 90 seconds try it. The topic for the day is verbs you would find in a cookbook. Verbs you would find in a cookbook. And please remember, though burning is something that you may accidentally do in the kitchen, you don't necessarily find that in the cookbook. All right? Bake, there's an example, but that's all I'll give you. 90 seconds. When the 90 seconds are up, students join in with groups of either 3 or 4. Each student takes a turn going around the circle, sharing one of their words. If anyone else in the group has it, they both have to cross it off. They cross it off lightly. They still get to use the word. It's just they're trying to earn points for having unique words, which is what you do in the game of Boggle. At the end of sharing, everyone shares all the words they have. Any word not crossed off, they circle, they get a point for that. Whoever has the most points gets a gold star and bragging rights, which students actually work for such things. And then after the game is played, the group borrows words from each other that either were crossed off or weren't crossed off. The goal here is for them to build a rich collection of words that will help them think the way that a wacky recipe poem tries to make you think. Here is the list or partial list that I have in my writer's notebook. The next step of the process, once students have a word bank, is you model the process, especially for your mastery learners, and I'm going to do that for you right now. When I model, I often like to show kids that the idea isn't as crazy as Barry might have you think, making it a wacky recipe poem. There's a great book, Thunder Cake, I use, and a great book, Enemy Pie, I use, which these are not real cakes or pies you would make. They're a little wacky, but my kids like to know that I'm not the only crazy person thinking this way, that there are actually published books that think this way. Let's do it for Thunder Cake here. Here are just 3 different things I got from an article on how thunder happens. All right, so I'll let you pause and read those. It may be important for you to read them so you can see my process here. So pause now. Okay, and I'm going to model the process I would go through in order to turn this into a recipe. And the first thing you got to do is you got to look at how something is made, in this case thunder, and you start thinking of measurement nouns. And so here's what I've done is I've made a list of ingredients based on those 3 steps. These are the things you need in order to make thunder, and you have to get into the kitchen mode by using measurement nouns. And so I'm going to start by saying, let's, instead of calling it lightning in my recipe, we're going to call it 1 slice of lightning. Now you have to get proportional. Big small slice of lightning compared to how many air particles it's going through. I'm going to try to make that relative, and so the next air particles in my ingredients, I'm going to turn that into 5 cups of air particles. 1 little slice, 5 cups. That to me kind of shows that I'm thinking about how much to how much is going on here. I decided 10 pounds of vibrations. I'm going to show thunder that's not that loud, thunder that's really loud, and thunder that's really, really loud. And so I'm going to use 10 pounds of vibrations to prove that point. I'm going to save force and heat for my instructions on what you do with these ingredients. So I'm going to move to those buildings and the cliffs. I'm just going to quantify them by saying let's have 3 tall buildings, or as recipes sometimes say, 3 tall cliffs. And then let's quantify those echoes by saying let's have a dash of echoes. All right, and notice what I've just done. I've modeled for you taking that list of things you need, and now I'm going to show you the next part, and I'm going to show you how you make the instructions. And so first of all, here's how you make thunder cake. Unwrap a slice of lightning and aggressively stir the air particles for a split second. I've taken the first two ingredients and I've started to combine them. I've underlined the verbs because a lot of the verbs, when you write this, it's a metaphor. You're trying to make it sound as much like a recipe as you possibly can. Mild thunder should float to the top of the bowl. It will increase with the intensity each time you add 1 to 5 pounds of vibrations. Again, I've underlined my verbs. That's kind of soft thunder in my thinking. If you heat the lightning slice and stir the air particles again, adding remaining vibrations to taste, using all 10 pounds will produce some very intense thunder cake. And then final instruction, not loud enough yet, toss mixture against tall buildings or cliffs with a dash of echoes, and your thunder cake will intensify and be truly frightening but delicious. And so I've just taken three pieces of information on how thunder is made. I've built it into a list of ingredients, and I've modeled how I would turn that into instructions you might find in a real recipe. I'm making these things come together to create something. That is modeling of the process. I've done this many times and I've gotten good at it. There's my model of it. The next step is I have them write a recipe that's not necessarily about content, but it's about something that's personally satisfying to them. A satisfying summer day, fall day, winter day, they like that topic. A satisfying Saturday morning, they like that topic. A satisfying day in school, some of them go with that topic. But the next time we practice with this, we do it with a personal topic. Here is my personal recipe from my writer's notebook of a satisfying summer day. My students always wonder why I'm burying my dog on a satisfying summer day, and that is my Westie, Ozzy, who as soon as you turn over a shovel full of dirt, he will roll in it because he likes the smell. So not burying my dog, that would not be a satisfying day. But there are my ingredients in the form of measurement nouns. Here are my instructions, and if you Google Corbett Harrison recipe metaphors, you'll actually find my page where you can look at this whole recipe and zoom in on details. But once they've seen you do it with content and see that you've done a personal topic, they do the same. This is how I do the classroom. And then, got cut off a little bit there. Here is one of my students. This can be found on that page, Corbett Harrison Recipe Metaphors in Google. On the left-hand side, you'll see these are her practice ones. She's done a fantastic fall day for herself. And then I asked them to make their first content one on something they were learning in science. They were discovering information about the periodic elements. Alex did the periodic elements. Here's 7th grader Brooks' attempt. She did winter day. A satisfying winter day, and her cookbook recipe, we were studying wetlands and did a field trip, and this is the recipe she made as part of our field trip. And then once I teach this model, and I teach it usually in English class, I let my other teachers on my team know, hey, history teacher, hey, science teacher, hey, math teacher, they now can write these recipes. And then what's nice is those teachers can start doing the same thing. Here is, I think this is Cheyenne's recipe for the Battle of Lexington, a way to summarize what they've learned and have them interact creatively with words. So let's get to how this process affects the 4 learning styles as categorized by Silver, Strong, and Perini. First of all, I think this mostly has an impact on your understanding learners and your self-expressive learners. Self-expressive learners, because you have to creatively apply kitchen verbs and nouns in a metaphorical way. They will like that. The understanding learners have to take the research and break it down into smaller pieces through their sense of analysis, which they're good at. And so this is a strong writing assignment for those particular students. Thinkers. The recipe is formulaic. It's got 2 parts, ingredients, model, and instructions. So I think the mastery learners grab onto that. They like to know when writing stops and when it ends. And then, of course, I showed you how I do a teacher demo. That's important. And then allow students to write with each other the first couple of times. It is called wacky research for a reason. And so coming back to what wacky research is, it gives them an opportunity to write about content in a way that they cannot plagiarize. There's no way they could type a topic and recipe and find anything online, but they can work together in order to make this happen. Hey, check out my website, CorbettHarrison.com, or check out Barry's website for great ideas and information. Thanks for listening today.